The CIA is facing a lawsuit over records related to an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. New allegations say that the agency paid off its analysts to change their conclusions about the origins of the virus and suppress the lab leak theory. Joining us now to discuss the lawsuit and the U.S. response to COVID, we have Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute. He's also the author of Liberty or Lockdown. Jeffrey Tucker, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So first, the Heritage Foundation is suing the CIA, accusing it of withholding records detailing payoffs to analysts to bury findings about COVID origins. What do you think about those allegations, and do you think the public should be able to get a hold on more related records on where COVID comes from?
Sure, we're zeroing in on the key problem here, which is the role of the intelligence community in the entire COVID response. It seems like we have vast amounts of evidence that the intelligence community was involved from the very beginning, really from late January all the way through February, probably involved in covering up the lab leak. We know for sure that Fauci visited CIA headquarters. The National Security Council was made the rule-making authority on March 13th, 2020. We have a great deal of evidence that the intelligence community really just ran the show from the very beginning. But there's been almost no talk about this at all in the corporate media, and very few people are even aware of this. At Brownstone, we've been publishing about this for 2 years, but it's still not becoming mainstream. So this lawsuit was a delightful surprise. I'm thrilled that Heritage Foundation is getting involved in this thing, and hopefully we get to the bottom of this. I'm a little bit doubtful, but I think it's a great step.
And also in COVID origins, Dr. Fauci is scheduled to sit for a deposition with the House COVID subcommittee on January 8th and January 9th in 2024, which is coming up in about just 10 days. So what kind of questions do you think lawmakers should ask him when it comes to COVID, which killed 7 million people worldwide?
We know for sure, starting in late January, that he and Jeremy Farrar from Britain were on the phone using burner phones, using secret phone calls, discussing things. And they made some big plans. They took a junket in the middle of February to Wuhan, sponsored by the CCP, had chartered flights, fancy meals. Fauci's deputy assistant, Clifford Lane, was on that trip. They came back and on the 26th wrote a report for the World Health Organization saying that the entire world should replicate what the CCP did in Wuhan. Otherwise, February 2020 is a bit of a blank to us. So if Fauci were in front of me, I would have a lot of questions to him about that junket to China, about what he knew when he knew it, the payoffs to the authors of the initial report, which is written in about 3 days, saying that there was no lab leak. That was clearly, I would say there's every bit of evidence that it's a cover-up. And I would like to know other things, like why did he panic the American public, claiming that there was going to be a 3 to 4% death rate, which he did on Congress on, I believe it was March the 11th, 2020. So there's a lot we need to know. As long as we're asking questions, we might want to ask about his royalties he gets from pharmaceutical products, possibly including even vaccines for COVID-19.
So you mentioned the need to demand more answers here in the U.S. about U.S. response to COVID, but when it comes to cases in China, the WHO has asked the Chinese government for more information about the pneumonia outbreak, etc. Do you think the world will be able to get transparency out of China this time around? There's
no chance of that. I mean, we know what happened last time, back in 2020, January 2020. There were scientists in China that was trying to get the word out of the sequence of the virus, just in the name of World Health, and they were punished very severely for their efforts. So everybody in China knows what's what, and they're going to follow the CCP line, which is that everything's great and well and everything's fine. So not to worry about it. It's all in the hands of Xi Jinping. He's got it all. He's the master of the universe. So that's the prevailing line in China's scientific community right now. It's really tragic that cooperation has fallen to basically zero. But I mean, let's not forget that the whole reason this disaster started in the first place was too tight a relationship between the U.S. NIH under Fauci and the CCP with their virus gain-of-function research in Wuhan. So that's what began this complete calamity. So I would not like to see that kind of cooperation, but transparency would be a good step in the right direction.
Jeffrey Tucker, thanks so much for joining us as always, and Happy New Year to you.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you.